Have you ever needed an important file only to realize it's stuck on your other computer? Or worse, your laptop's gone and so are your files. That's where OneDrive saves the day. Hi, I'm Garrick, and today I'll show you the most essential ways to use OneDrive, from syncing and organizing your files to sharing and collaborating, so you can make the most of it. OneDrive is Microsoft's cloud storage service that gives you a secure, reliable way to store and access your files online, sync them across all of your devices, and share them with others. For example, unlike attaching photos or videos to an email, where you usually have to worry about hitting size limits for email attachments, you can just send a link to the photos or videos on your OneDrive account for your friends and family to view or download. OneDrive is similar to other cloud-based services you might have heard of, like Google Drive or Dropbox. The basic idea behind a cloud-based service is that once you upload or save your files to the cloud, you can access those files from any computer or mobile device, so you don't have to worry about having a specific computer with you or being at home if you need to get to your important files. Cloud-based storage systems like OneDrive also act as a backup system, so even if your computer is lost or stolen, any files you have saved on OneDrive will be accessible from any other device you log into. OneDrive is also a great collaboration tool if you need to work with others on your files. Instead of sending copies of the files back and forth, you can give access to the files on OneDrive so you and the people you're collaborating with can all work on the same file, even if you live in completely different parts of the world. Okay, so let's jump in and take a look at the most essential ways OneDrive can help you sync, manage, and use your files in the cloud and across your devices. Let's start by seeing how we can get OneDrive installed on our computers. And if you're a Windows user using Windows 10 or later on your computer, well, good news, you already have OneDrive installed. Just go to your Start menu, look in your apps, and you'll find it here under O. Now, if you're using an earlier version of Windows, or if you uninstalled OneDrive from your computer, you can always open up your browser and go to OneDrive.com, and here click Download, and then click the Download OneDrive button to download the installer for Windows or Mac. The website should automatically detect whether you're using a Mac or Windows machine and download the correct one. But if you're on a Mac and it's not downloading the correct version, you can instead go to the Apple menu to open up the App Store, and here do a search for OneDrive, which should be the first result that shows up, and you can install the app from here. We'll look more closely at working with the Mac version shortly, but for now, let's go back to the download page. And if you scroll down on the download page, you'll find links to install the OneDrive app on your iOS or Android device, or you can scan this QR code with your phone's camera to go directly to the OneDrive page on your device. Or you can always go to the App Store on an iPhone or iPad, or the Play Store on an Android device, search for OneDrive, and install the app manually from there. Now below that, if I haven't mentioned it yet, OneDrive is free to use for anyone who has a Microsoft account, which is also free. If you already know you have a Microsoft account, great, you're all set. If you're not sure if you have an account, there are several ways you might have created one in the past. If you have a subscription to Microsoft 365, which includes apps like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, you have a Microsoft account. If you have an Xbox and have signed up for Xbox Live, you have a Microsoft account. And if you ever signed up for a Hotmail or Outlook.com email account, you have a Microsoft account. Or if you're on Windows, you may have created an account to sign into Windows when you set up your PC. So consider whether you may have set up an account in any of these ways. Of course, you can always create a brand new free account at any time too. One of the easiest ways to do this is to go to Outlook.com, click Sign In, and then click here to create a new account. Then just follow the prompts to create your account with a new Outlook.com email address. Again, this is completely free. And you can see here that with a free account, as of me recording this video, you get 5 gigabytes of storage space on OneDrive with your Microsoft account. But if you subscribe to the basic package, that takes you up to 100 gigabytes of cloud storage. And subscribing to Microsoft Personal, Family, or any of the business accounts gives you 1 terabyte of storage space per user, which is essentially 1,000 gigabytes. But if you haven't started using OneDrive yet, you can begin with a free account and run it through its paces to see if it fits your needs and workflows. Okay, so even though OneDrive is directly accessible from Windows or through the OneDrive app on the Mac and mobile devices, let's start out by going to OneDrive on the web, because it works the same way on the web regardless of the device you're using. And we can get there by going to OneDrive.com in our browser. That redirects you to this OneDrive.live.com address, but it's easier to remember OneDrive.com. And of course, you can just bookmark it if you'll be using it a lot. If you haven't signed into your Microsoft account in your browser yet, you'll be prompted to do so. I'm already logged in this case, so let's take a look around. Like with many of the web-based or online Microsoft services, you'll find this button here in the upper left-hand corner that some people call a waffle button. And clicking that lets you switch to or open other Microsoft products you can use online like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on. Or down here at the bottom, you can click one of these document types to immediately create and start working in a document like a Word document. And that pops up in a new tab and immediately takes us into Word Online with a new Word document. I'm just going to close that for now. But notice back here in OneDrive, we now have this document called Document listed in our OneDrive directory. So creating a new file in the online versions of these M365 applications automatically saves that file to your OneDrive. But of course, you can always save any other files you have on your computer to OneDrive as well. You can click the Create or Upload button, and here you can choose to create a new folder, or you can click Files Upload to upload individual files, or Folder Upload to upload an entire folder of files from your computer. And below that, this is where you can also quickly create other types of Microsoft app files like a OneNote notebook or a plain text document. At the top of the window, we have this Search Everything field, which you can use to quickly find any files stored on your OneDrive. We'll come back to this in a bit, but it can really come in handy, especially when you have a lot of files stored here. Now, the main area here on the left side of the window is where you navigate your files. It defaults to the Home view, which shows you all the files you've recently worked with over here. And you can click on any one to open it and keep working with it. You can also click the three-dot button next to its name and see other options for things you can do with the file. Coming back here to the left, clicking My Files shows you the full directory of every file you have stored on OneDrive. Notice in this view, the three-dot menu gives us several more options for things we can do with our files. Or if we check the box next to the file name to select it, we see several options appear here at the top, like the options to open the file, to share it with others, download it, delete it, and so on. You'll see other commands if you click the three-dot button here as well. So for example, with this file selected, if I click the Delete button and click Delete, that sends the selected file to the recycle bin of my OneDrive. And I can find it there if I come over to Recycle Bin. And there it is. Now, if you're using a personal OneDrive account, files will stay in the recycle bin for 30 days before they're automatically deleted. If you're using a work or school account, they'll stay there for around 90 days. But you can also manually delete a file right away by clicking the three-dot button next to its name and choosing Delete from here. But just be aware that this is permanent. You can also click Restore to send the file back to where it was in case you change your mind or send it here accidentally. So if I switch back to my files, I can see that file has been restored here. Now this Sort menu up here lets you sort the list of files by when they were modified, created, or by their size. To the right of that, you can switch between this default view of the files as a list to a compact list, so you can see more files at once, or tiles, if you prefer to see your files as larger icons. I'll switch that back to list view for now. Now, just to point out a few more important things, here in the upper right-hand corner, we have this gear icon, and that's where you can get to your OneDrive settings. This is also where you can upgrade your account for more storage or find the links to download the OneDrive app for your mobile device. Clicking your account icon, which may be your initials or a photo, is where you can edit your Microsoft account profile and your account settings. This is also where you can sign out of OneDrive on the web, which is always important if you're accessing your OneDrive, or any other online account for that matter, from a friend or coworker's computer or a public computer, or any computer that's not your own that others have access to. All right, so that's a quick rundown of the OneDrive web interface and layout. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you're using Windows 10 or 11, OneDrive is built directly into your system. You should see this OneDrive icon in your taskbar, which you can click to see some of your recently used files. Down here at the bottom, we have some options. Open Folder opens your OneDrive folder in Windows Explorer so you can get to all of your files. Now you can also get here by going to the Start menu, to All, and OneDrive, which is how you'll get to it if you don't see it in your taskbar. Now, if you haven't yet set up OneDrive, you'll be walked through the steps to sign in and set it up, and once you do that, you'll have access to your files and folders here. Any changes you make to this folder on your PC, whether it's renaming a file, adding new files, or moving folders, will be reflected when you view your OneDrive on the web or on any other device. So for example, I'll just rename this file here. I'll call it Rental Slideshow. And one quick way to get back to the web interface is to click the OneDrive icon in the taskbar and click View Online. That opens up your browser, and you can see the name change here as well. From the OneDrive button in the taskbar, you can also click the Settings button to get to the OneDrive settings on your computer. So from here, you can add additional accounts to manage and sync if you have more than one OneDrive account. You can unlock your personal vault. You can manage what files are synced to and from your computer, and so on. And we'll get to some of these settings shortly. Now, this works very similarly if you're using the OneDrive app on a Mac. Once you've downloaded and installed the app on your Mac, you'll see the OneDrive icon in the menu bar. If you don't see it, make sure you open OneDrive from your Applications folder. But you can see this looks very similar to what we just saw in Windows. You can see your recent files listed here. You can click Open Folder to open the OneDrive folder on your Mac. You can also click View Online to open OneDrive on the web in your web browser. And you can come up here and click the Settings button to view and adjust your preferences. And again, any changes you make here on your Mac will be reflected on your other devices or when you view your files on the web. Now, you might have noticed that on Windows and here on the Mac, we have these symbols next to the file names in our OneDrive folder. Here on the Mac, for example, if you see this cloud icon with an arrow, that means this file is stored on the cloud but is not currently on this computer. You can download any file to your computer by double-clicking on it, which will then open it up. But notice that the cloud icon has now disappeared, which means the file exists on my computer now, but it also still exists on the cloud. Files with this person icon next to them indicate that this is a file or folder I've shared with others. Similarly, back in Windows, we have different looking status icons, but they mean the same things. A cloud icon means the file is stored in the cloud, but not on the current device. And again, you can double-click to download the file to your computer. A green checkmark means the file is saved to your computer as well as the cloud. And the person icon, again, means you're sharing this file with others. You may occasionally also see a sync icon next to a file. For example, if you drag a file from somewhere else on your computer to your OneDrive folder, and that just indicates that OneDrive is in the process of copying that file to the cloud. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about sharing files from your OneDrive, because as we previously touched on, OneDrive isn't just for backing up your files so you can always access them. It's also a great place to store files you want to share with other people. Even with the 5 GB of storage that comes with a free OneDrive account, you can share much larger files than you can by sending them through email. To share a file or folder, you can click the 3-dot button next to the file name and click Share. Alternately, you can also right-click on any file or folder to select Share, or if the file or folder is selected, you can click the Share button up here at the top. Any of these options will open up this Share window. And by the way, if you're using OneDrive through Windows or on a Mac, you can right-click a file on your OneDrive folder to find the Share options, which will also open a window that looks like this. In this top field, you can type the name of the people or group that you want to share the file with, or you can enter their email address. You can enter multiple people into this field if you need to share it with more than one person. Next to the name field, click this menu to specify if the people you're sharing with can edit the document, or if you only want them to be able to view the file but not make any changes to it. In this case, I'm collaborating on this Word document with Nick, so I want him to be able to edit it. Below that, you can add an optional message if you need to tell them what this file is about or for, or what you need them to do with it. Now, the message here is only relevant if you're going to use the Send button down here. And that'll have OneDrive send them an email with the link to the file you're sharing, and your message will be included in that email. You also have the option of clicking Copy Link, which copies a link to the file to your computer clipboard, and then you can paste the link into an email you're composing yourself in your email program, or into a text message, and so on. But in those cases, you're only copying the link and not any message you put in here. Now at the top of this window, you can click the gear icon to see additional controls over who can access the file you're sharing. Anyone means anyone with the link to this file can access it. So if you send the link to someone, they can share the file with others who will then be able to access the file. Only people with existing access is for when you're resharing the file with people who already have access, and people you choose means only people you've specified by name, group, or email can access the file. So even if they share the link with others, no one but the people you specified can open the file with that link. And below that is another menu where you can choose whether people can edit or just view the file with this link. You can set a date for when access expires. So if you only want people to be able to access it for a specific time period, you can set a date for the link to stop working. And you can also password protect the file from here, so even if you have the access set to anyone up top, anyone with a link to the file will still need the password to open or view it. Just note that setting an expiration date and a password do require a paid subscription to OneDrive. In this case, I'll leave everything as is for now and click Apply. And I'm ready to share this now, so I'll click Send. We can close this window, and I'll just reload the page. And now if I click the 3-dot button next to the file and go to Details, I can see that this file has been shared. And you can open this panel at any time to see with whom you've shared the file, or you can also come back in here to reshare the file with other people. Now, one important thing to mention at this point, especially if you're sharing a file that you're collaborating on with others, is the ability to review the version history of a file. You can do this by right-clicking on a file, and this can be any file, not just one you shared, and then choosing Version History. This allows you to see all the different iterations the document has gone through. Now, we don't have a lot in this example file, but in the real world, you'll be able to see all the different versions and who made the changes, and you can choose to open up older versions, or even restore the file back to previous versions, which may come in handy if someone makes changes you don't agree with. So just remember that you have this version history option as a safety net. Now, even though the advantage of OneDrive is that you can work with your files while they're stored in the cloud, there may be times when you want to make sure you have a copy of the file that stays on your computer. For example, if you often get work done on airplanes where there isn't always a reliable Wi-Fi connection, or if you don't want to have to pay for a Wi-Fi connection just to get your work done, all you have to do is go to your OneDrive folder on your PC or Mac and right-click on the file and choose Always Keep on this device. You can then work on the file on your computer even without an internet connection. And once you're connected to the internet again, the changes you made will be synced back to the cloud, so the most current version will always be available across all your devices and through the web. Just make sure you don't move the file or rename it while you're working offline, or that might cause some syncing issues. Now, the opposite of this is if a file is in your OneDrive folder and is taking up a lot of space, and maybe space is limited on one of your devices like your laptop computer. In those cases, just right-click on the file, and here choose Free Up Space. That will remove the file from your computer, but the file will still be safely stored in the cloud, and you can still access it and edit it on OneDrive through your web browser without it taking up precious hard drive space. Now, back here in the web interface, let's look at some of the ways you can organize your files. Now, you can usually find any file you're looking for through the search field at the top of the window, and we'll get to that in a moment, but you can also manage your files and folders in much the same way you can do on your computer. For example, if I want to create a new folder, I just come over here to the Create or Upload button and choose Folder. I can then name the folder. So for example, maybe I have a rental property that I own and I want to keep all the related files in one place on OneDrive, so I'll call this Rental Property. I'll click Create, and here's my new folder. Now I already have some files on my OneDrive that I want to move into this folder, like this property flyer, this property info sheet, and so on. To move a file, you can just right-click on it or click the three-dot button and choose Move To. And here find the folder you want to move the file into, select it and click Move Here. And after a second, we see the confirmation that the file has been moved. If you need to move multiple files, like I have this property info sheet in both a Word and PDF format, and I have some bills here and a presentation, I can just check all of those and then come up to the top of the screen and click Move To. And that opens up the same interface where we can choose the folder we want to move the files to. I'll click Move Here. We get the confirmation, and if I go into that folder, we can see our files. Now, if I want to further organize this folder, for example, maybe I want a folder for all the utility bills, I can just select those two files and choose Move To again. So you can also create a new folder from here instead of creating the folder first. I'll just come up here and click New Folder. I'll call it Utilities. Select it, and click Move Here to move those files into that folder, which we can now see here. Now, you can, of course, upload files from your computer to your OneDrive. I have another utility file here on my desktop, and since I'm using the web interface, the easiest way to upload this to the Utilities folder is to just drag it in. And I could do the same if I'm uploading an entire folder of files too. But you can see that file is now here. And by the way, notice that whenever you're viewing the contents of a folder, you can always see the path to this folder here at the top. So we can see that Utilities is inside Rental Property, which is inside my main My Files OneDrive folder. And you can click any of these levels to jump back to that folder. Now, in addition to moving files and uploading new files, we can also generate new files right from OneDrive and have them saved to OneDrive right away. Let's say I want to start a spreadsheet of my rental property's monthly expenses. While I'm here viewing the rental property folder, I'll come back up to the Create or Upload button and choose to create an Excel workbook. That pops open a new browser tab and takes us into Excel Online with a new workbook open. You can see the default name of this file is Book, but I can click there and give it a real name, like Property Expenses. And I'll just close that for now. And after a second, you can see it appears here in my rental property folder. All right, so that's how we manage, upload, and create files in the OneDrive web interface. Now, as you start to regularly use OneDrive, you might eventually have hundreds or even thousands of files and folders there, which can make it challenging to find certain files, even if you've been pretty good about keeping things organized. Fortunately, it's super easy to search for files using the search field here at the top of the web interface. Notice it says Search Everything. So when you type in a search term here, you're not just searching for a file or folder name. OneDrive also catalogs the content of your files, and that includes photos which you've tagged or that OneDrive has tagged for you. For example, I'll search for the phrase breakfast nook, and here I'm seeing the results of both the Word and PDF versions of this property info sheet, but none of these files have breakfast nook in their file names. They do, however, have that text in the document themselves. Or I might search for service address, and that brings up my utilities bills because they all contain that text. Now, we'll talk about working with photos shortly, but if you've uploaded your own pictures to the Photos folder in OneDrive, you can add tags to include info about what's in those photos, but OneDrive can also automatically tag those photos for you. So if you're looking for a specific image, you can try describing it in the search field. For example, I'll search for ocean. And that brings up photos it's found that depict oceans. I'll switch this over to tiles so we can actually see some previews here. Or I might search for nature, and we see these photos. Now, I didn't add these tags to my photos when I uploaded them. OneDrive does that by default. So we can come over here to Settings, Options, and here select Photos. And we can see here that Use Tags to Find and Organize Photos is switched on. Now, if you have a lot of people in your photos, you'll also see a switch to allow it to tag people. So by default, OneDrive will use AI to check out and catalog the contents and the people it finds in your photos, making it easier to find photos of people grouped by their faces. But if you don't want it to do one or either of these things, you can disable these switches. All right, so that's a look at how to search for files and photos on your OneDrive through the web interface. Now, you can also use your PC or Mac's built-in search tools if you want to search your OneDrive on your computer. But if you're specifically searching for something on your OneDrive, you might have an easier time searching through the web interface like we've done here. Now, as I touched on earlier, another feature that's included as part of your OneDrive account, which you'll find with My Files selected, is this Personal Vault folder, which offers you an extra layer of security for the files you store in it. So this is a great place for your more important or sensitive files. The idea behind the Personal Vault folder is that it requires extra steps in order to unlock it, and it also automatically locks after a short period of inactivity, so you don't have to worry if you left your Personal Vault folder or a file inside of it open. Anytime you select your Personal Vault, you'll be prompted to sign in with your Microsoft account again, even though you're already signed into OneDrive. So you may have to enter your password again, and you may even be prompted to confirm your identity either through an alternate email address or a text message sent to your phone. So in this case, it's going to send a code to my alternate email address. I have to verify what that address is. And once I receive the code in my email, I'll enter it here. And once you've verified your identity, you'll have access to your Personal Vault and its contents, and you'll be free to upload or move files into it. Just bear in mind that you'll have to go through a verification process each time you want to unlock your Personal Vault. Now, if I go back to My Files for a moment, notice the icon for the Personal Vault now shows an open safe. I can click to go back into it, and I don't have to verify my identity again because your Personal Vault stays unlocked for 20 minutes by default. Although if you're using the OneDrive app on a mobile device, it stays unlocked for just 3 minutes. But once it's unlocked, it works just like any other folder on your OneDrive. You can drag in files from your desktop or elsewhere on your computer, or click the Create or Upload button to create new files or browse to files to add to it. And again, this is a great place to keep sensitive files like maybe photos of your driver's license or passport or birth certificate, so you can access them when needed. If you have the OneDrive app on your mobile device, you can even scan documents directly into your Personal Vault, which we'll see how to do in a bit. Now, just be aware that if you're using a free or basic Microsoft account, you're limited to only storing 3 items in your Personal Vault. Now, there are some workarounds for this, like putting several files into a folder on your computer, compressing the folder, and then uploading the single compressed file to your Personal Vault. But if you want the convenience of uploading as many files as you like to your Personal Vault, you'll need to have a paid M365 subscription. Now, as I mentioned, your Personal Vault will automatically lock after 20 minutes of inactivity, or you can manually lock it by clicking the Lock button by going to Vault and choosing Lock. And you can see its icon now shows a closed safe again, and if I wanted to go back into it, I'd have to re-verify my identity again. Now, also be aware that currently your Personal Vault does not show up if you're using OneDrive on a Mac. You can access your other files and folders as normal, but you won't see the Personal Vault, and you'll have to access it through your web browser. You can, however, access your Personal Vault through Windows by viewing your OneDrive through File Explorer as usual. So we can see it here. Also in Windows, you can access Personal Vault settings by clicking the OneDrive icon in the taskbar, going to Settings, Account, and here you can adjust how much time needs to pass before the Personal Vault locks. So if you find that 20 minutes is too short and you're always having to re-verify your identity to get into your Personal Vault, you can extend the amount of time here. Okay, so let's talk about the Photos section of OneDrive now. This area allows you to see all the photos you've uploaded to your OneDrive in one location. The default view here is Gallery, and this is where all of your photos will appear. You can see they're organized chronologically, and you can scroll through all of them here. At the top to the right, you have the options to control the layout of this gallery and the size of the thumbnails. Now at the top of the page, we also have this For You section, which OneDrive automatically curates and personalizes based on the photos and videos you have stored. So for example, in my case, it's created albums of photos from San Francisco, Iceland, and Yosemite National Park because I have several photos from those locations. What you see here will vary depending on the type of content you've uploaded. We can also switch to the Albums view, where you can manually create your own collections of the photos you've uploaded. For example, I'll click Create a New Album, and maybe I'll call this one Yosemite, so I can control my own collection of photos of Yosemite that I've uploaded. I'll click Add Photos, and I can just come through and start selecting photos. I'll click Create Album, and here it is. Once you have an album created, you can add more to it later, you can remove photos, and you can share the whole album with others, just like you can share other files or folders on your OneDrive. It's a great way to share your pictures from a trip without emailing or texting them to people. And the third tab up here is Explore. This is an entirely OneDrive-generated collection of albums based on the content of your photos. It works kind of like the For You section we just saw in the gallery area, but you can see in my case, it's organized my photos into places and things. If you have people who appear in your photos, you may see albums based on the faces OneDrive matches from your pictures. And there are also some categories down here. So for example, if I wanted to see all of my videos that I've uploaded to OneDrive, I can just click that, and there they are. And as we touched on earlier, this ability of OneDrive to detect the content of your photos makes it easy to find the pictures you're looking for in the search bar. So I could search for something like sky, and there are all the photos it's found that include the sky. Or I could search for sunglasses, and it's found these photos. And again, I didn't add any of this information to my photos myself. I simply uploaded them to OneDrive. Now you can manually add tags to your photos too. For example, I'll open this one of me wearing sunglasses. And if I click this info button, you can see all the tags OneDrive automatically added, and that includes sunglasses right here. We could also add a tag, and maybe in this case, I want to add a tag of Golden Gate, since we can see the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. That way I'll be able to find this picture again by searching for that tag in the future. But I think you'll find that in most cases, OneDrive does a pretty great job of adding relevant tags to your photos on its own. So we've seen that you can adjust some of your OneDrive settings from the web interface using the gear icon here, but you can also find some settings specific to the desktop applications on your Mac or PC. Here in Windows, just click the OneDrive icon in the taskbar, go to the gear icon, and choose Settings. Now, there's actually quite a lot you can set and customize here, but let's look at some of the more useful and important ones. First, we have the Sync and Backup category. At the top, we have Backup Important PC folders to OneDrive, and we can click Manage Backup to choose which folders from our computer will always be backed up to OneDrive. So if you wanted to, you could back up your documents, pictures, desktop, music, and videos, and so on. Meaning any changes I make to those folders on my PC will be reflected on my OneDrive backup. But if, for example, you don't use your desktop folder to store important files, you could switch that off to save space on your OneDrive. Or you could enable just your music or video folders if those are important to you. It's really up to you. Down at the bottom here, you can see how much of your available space you're currently using. I'll just close this for now without making any changes. Now, slightly related to this, let's scroll down to Advanced Settings. And here I want to look at this Files on Demand area. We have two options here. We have Free Up Disk Space, and that sets the files in your OneDrive to be online only, meaning they'll be removed from your computer's hard drive and exist only on the cloud. You'll still be able to access and work on your files, but you'll need to be online to do so. The trade-off is that this frees up hard drive space on your computer. The other option here is Download All Files. That means anything currently on your OneDrive and anything you add to it from another device or through the web interface will be downloaded to this computer, so you'll always have a local copy of anything on your OneDrive. Of course, this means that your OneDrive will take up more physical space on your computer, but if you have the available space, this is a good way to not have to rely on an internet connection when you want to work with your OneDrive files, like if you're on a plane or you're somewhere without a reliable connection. Your files will still continue to sync whenever you're back online. All right, let's close that again without making any changes. Now, if you want to be more specific about which folders from your OneDrive get synced to your computer, you can switch over here to the Accounts section, and here click Choose Folders. So if there are certain folders that you don't need on your computer, you can just uncheck them here, and they won't show up in your computer's OneDrive folder. Bear in mind that the folder and its contents will still always be available online through the web interface. All you're doing here is preventing it from automatically downloading to your computer. All right, so far we've been looking at working with OneDrive exclusively through the web interface or on your computer, but as we touched on earlier, the OneDrive app is also available for iOS and Android phones and tablets, and is a great way for you to always have access to your files when you're out and about. I'm looking at the app on my iPhone at the moment, but the layout is nearly identical on Android devices. Once you're signed into your account, you'll see the Photos and Files selectors at the top of the screen. With Files selected, you'll see the same categories that you see in the OneDrive web interface. We have Home, which shows you the files you've most recently worked with. My Files shows you everything on your OneDrive. Shared displays the files and folders you've shared with others. And we even have access to our personal vault from here. One category that's unique to the mobile app is Offline, where you can see any files you've downloaded to your device so you can work with them when you don't have an internet connection. And you can do this with any file by going back to My Files, clicking the three-dot button next to any one of your files, and turning on Make Available Offline. So now if I switch back to the Offline category, we see that file here. Now, if we switch over to the Photos area, we default to the Gallery view, just like with the web interface. And here you can browse through all the photos stored on your OneDrive to view them, edit them, share them with others, and so on. Also, like with the web interface, we have some other categories into which OneDrive automatically curates your photos. Like we have this Moments area. You might see the People category if you have a lot of photos of people in your OneDrive. You can also select Albums to view albums you've created, or you can create new albums right from here too. Now, one of the great things about the mobile app is that you can access your device's camera and scan photos or documents right into OneDrive without leaving the app. Just tap the plus button here at the bottom of the screen. Now, if you do this while Photos is selected, you'll see these three options to create a new album, scan a photo, or upload a photo. But if you have Files selected at the top, and tap the plus button, you'll see additional options to create a Word, Excel, or PowerPoint file right from here. But in this case, I have a document that I want to scan in, so I'm going to tap Scan. And I'm deliberately doing this with the Files tab selected at the top because this allows us to see more options for our scan. Below the shutter, you can see that you can choose the type of file you're taking a photo of. You can switch between document if you're taking a picture of a printout that's sitting on your desk, for example, or a whiteboard if you want to capture the contents of what's been written on a whiteboard during a meeting. You can scan a business card or choose a photo. For this example, I have a receipt that I want to capture, so I'm going to go back to Document. Now I'll just pick up my phone off the desk and point it at this receipt. Now, the great thing about capturing documents through OneDrive instead of just using your phone's camera is that OneDrive can detect the borders and angles of a document and then automatically adjust the cropping and the perspective. So notice it's capturing that border or detecting the borders even as I move the camera around. So I just need to point my camera at this invoice and then tap the shutter button. Now, if necessary, you can manually adjust the borders around what it's captured. But as long as there's decent contrast between what you're scanning and the background it's on, OneDrive will do a pretty good job. I'll leave it as is and tap Review and Edit. And notice now how it's adjusted the angles to give us something very similar to what we would get if we used an actual scanner. We have some tools over here on the right to make manual adjustments to the cropping again or to mark up the document. Down at the bottom, we have a Filters button. So for example, here I can try Document to see how that looks. That gives us a little more contrast. We can try some of the other filters like Enhance or Black and White or Grayscale. But I think in this case, Document actually looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave that selected. Now, if you're scanning a multi-page document, you can tap Add More down here at the bottom to add additional pages to the single document that you'll be creating. But in this case, I just have the one page, so I'll tap Finish. Up here at the top, you can see that this is being saved as a PDF file. You can also tap Rename to give it a more descriptive name. You can see that this document will be saved in My Files by default, but you're free to select other files by going into My Files. Maybe I'll select Documents, and then tap Save. And now if I go into Documents, I can find my receipt. All right, one last thing I want to show you here. We just saw how there were some markup tools available when you scanned in your document. These tools are also available when working with existing photos or documents stored on your OneDrive, which makes the OneDrive app a powerful tool for editing and annotating files, including PDF files. For example, if someone sends you a contract you need to mark up for edits, you can save the file to your OneDrive or scan it in if you receive a paper version, and then open up that file. Then tap the annotation button here at the bottom of the screen to get access to the tools. So for example, here I could select the pen tool, choose a color for it, and draw directly on my document. We also have the eraser tool here if we want to get rid of that. At the top of the screen, you can access some additional tools like the Note tool. So when I tap that, I can then tap anywhere in my document to add an annotation. And notice that places this annotation icon here on the document. So if anybody taps that, they can read the note. There's also a text tool. So if I select that and then tap anywhere on my screen, if I wanted to fill this form out on screen, I could just type my name, for example, tap outside of it, select it, and then I can just drag that wherever it needs to go in the document. You can tap the three-dot button here in the upper right-hand corner to find additional tools like the ability to add shapes, to add your signature, embed an image, or to add the date. Again, just select any of these tools and then tap to add that information to the document. So there's a pretty decent collection of tools available in the OneDrive app that you won't find in the web interface or the desktop apps. All right, so that is Microsoft OneDrive. If you haven't done so already, I highly suggest you give it a try, especially since it has that free tier with 5 GB of storage space, which should be plenty of space to help you decide whether it's a good fit and solution for you to manage, backup, and share your important files. To watch more videos like this one, please consider subscribing to our channel. And until next time, I'm Garrick Chow, and we'll see you soon.